Right now, YNW Melly is still being held in county jail, awaiting his trial to start for the passing of his two best friends, YNW Juvy and YNW Sakchaser. With evidence being really hard to find for this case due to no witnesses being at the scene or even any street camera evidence, the case has been going on now for the last couple of years, but we are now starting to get some very significant evidence that will most likely end this case very soon. YNW Melly, YNW Juvy, YNW Sakchaser, and YNW Portland, all four of them were recording at a studio for several hours. Now when it was time to finally pack up, head home for some sleep, YNW Melly and the rest of the YNW boys packed up their Jeep and started heading home. YNW Melly says on the way home, a vehicle then ended up getting into Melly's lane, eventually pulling over YNW Melly's car to the side of the road. When at the side of the road, that's when allegedly the other vehicle ended up just lighting up YNW Melly's vehicle. YNW Melly explains this incident as a war zone happening out in the middle of the street. Like, I'm talking like real GTA type stuff. Now YNW Melly and everybody in the car, they had no choice but to just duck for cover in their vehicle, which got hit very, very hard. Now I'll show some photos on the screen of YNW Melly's actual car in that incident, so then you can get more of an image on how serious this actually was. It almost seems as if one or two or maybe three people hopped out of the other vehicle and surrounded YNW Melly's Jeep on all angles and were just going at it. Now looking at these photos of Melly's Jeep, it's a miracle that Melly and YNW Portland got out of this situation without even a scratch on them. Now YNW Melly and Portland, after this incident, ended up sitting in their vehicle in total shock on what just happened, until realizing that Juvy and Sakchaser were affected very terribly in this incident. Now here's where it starts to get very weird. After realizing that Juvy and Sakchaser are literally sitting in the vehicle in critical condition, YNW Melly and Portland actually waited 40 minutes before getting them any sort of medical attention. Instead of calling an ambulance to the location of where it just happened, they actually insisted on driving Juvy and Sakchaser all the way to the hospital themselves. Now YNW Melly and Portland, they were then arrested while at the hospital and taken into jail for questioning. After the questioning was done, Melly and Portland ended up getting released, and that's when Melly and Portland then turned themselves into law enforcement, as they believe that they are the main suspects in this act. After a few years of the case kind of being in a standstill, some crucial evidence was then found in the case. Now this is evidence so crucial that it literally makes Melly look so guilty that YNW Portland was then granted bail at a hearing that YNW Melly was expecting himself to get bail in. Now in these court photos that are on screen, you can see YNW Melly's reaction to receiving an even longer jail time. Meanwhile, YNW Portland was then released on bail and was able to return home to start his rap career. Now, while law enforcement returned to the original scene as to where it all happened, they really couldn't find much at all. There was a couple shell casings on the ground, but it doesn't really mean much when you actually can't find the firearms that were used during this incident. Now this actually gave one of the law enforcement agents an idea of putting out a warrant for YNW Melly's cell phone. Now the law enforcement actually have a tool that's only accessible by law enforcement. Now this is called a data extract. Now this can be done to a certain device. It can literally bring back deleted photos, text messages, even Snapchats that were sent on that device. Not to mention that these particular cell phones, which were both iPhone 10s, were on a T-Mobile network. T-Mobile has a very, very interesting feature where it will tell you the environment that the cell phone was in. Now this means that the law enforcement can actually go back in time, track the cell phone on a GPS and a map, and they can actually see where YNW Melly was on that day, where he went after the incident was done. They can actually tell if YNW Melly left the vehicle when the car was pulled over to the side of the road. And mind you, law enforcement actually believed that YNW Melly pulled the car over and Bortland was doing a distraction inside of the car, where Melly then did the act towards Juvy and Sakchaser. Now that would answer a lot of questions, and here is actually one of the biggest reasons as to why they wanted the cell phone. Now, when doing the data extract on YNW Melly's cell phone, they were mostly just wanting it to do the GPS search from them going back in time. Little did they know, they would actually end up finding an entire confession video on YNW Melly's cell phone. Now, in an official court document from YNW Melly's case, it states, and I quote, "Then we also have a video of Mr. Demons admitting to doing an act towards two individuals in the head." Allegedly, that video was actually deleted off YNW Melly's cell phone, but due to the data extract, it was brought back to life. Now, if this actually does end up turning out to be true, and YNW Melly's lawyer can't come up with a good defense as to why this piece of evidence was on YNW Melly's cell phone, this could be the final thing that the law enforcement needs to basically put YNW Melly behind bars for the rest of his life. And around the same time that this evidence was actually released, this photo of YNW Melly ended up coming out to the public. Now, it is a pretty low quality photo of Melly, as I'm pretty sure he was actually at a court hearing, so he has to have a photo of himself every time he has one, and he looks rough. I gotta admit, from comparing most photos of YNW Melly behind bars to this one, YNW Melly is looking like he is very, very upset. He used to be very, excited and always happy and confident that he would beat this court case, but in this specific photo, YNW Melly does not look too confident, I have to admit. Now, the official date of YNW Melly's next court hearing is actually in 10 days. YNW Melly is a court hearing on July 23rd to go over if the law enforcement has enough evidence for the trial to actually start. And depending when you actually end up watching this video, who knows, the court hearing could have started. I actually believe the law enforcement now have enough evidence for the trial to start, and if that ends up happening, things are gonna get very, very crazy. Now make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll keep you up to date with everything you need to know about YNW Melly and his court case. Anyways, it's been District Trending, and I'm out. Peace.